My name is Paul Marsh. I'm an expedition specialist and I've been building overland vehicles for the past 30 years for clients from around the world. I turn people's dreams into reality, and I love sharing my knowledge and my experience so that I can prepare people for the expeditions that they're going to undertake and travel the world in an overland vehicle.
So in this series, we want to share our knowledge, we want to share our experience, those hard-learned lessons. For any of you looking to buy a four-wheel drive or already own a four-wheel drive, what process do you follow? What do you look for? What preventative maintenance would you build into a vehicle that you already own that allows you to build a vehicle that's going to be reliable, safe, and take you on amazing journeys? That's what it's about. So if this talks to you and you want to follow us, subscribe and ring that notification bell.
So this is the vehicle we're going to be using for this series. It's a 2001 Prado 90 series. It's got the 3-litre KZTE diesel engine in it. Very reliable, capable little vehicle. So we've chosen the Prado, but really the processes that we're going to share with you, you can apply to any vehicle. It's about building back-end reliability to give you the confidence to take this vehicle anywhere on expedition.
So the first steps in actually choosing a vehicle are actually critical. It's important that you make these decisions before you start buying and spending your money. I look firstly at how I'm going to use the vehicle. Is this vehicle going to be used for a family? Is it going to be a solo traveler? Is it going to be just two of you? Identify who's going to travel in the vehicle. Then think about where you're going to use the vehicle. It might be a trip to the Kruger Park for a weekend. It might be that you're actually going to take a few weeks off and go and explore a neighboring country. It could be you're going to actually take this vehicle and drive for 6 months or a year and go on a big overland expedition through Africa. And I think that's really important, that people spend the time to identify, look at the big picture, zoom in on what you'd like, what does your heart say, what does your head say, and try and get a good understanding of what's important, that you focus on 3 key factors. It's got to have simplicity, you want to build in that reliability, and it's going to be safe. And I believe that when you follow the process and you've understood that you've made the right decision on your vehicle, then you can process to the next step on how would I actually now go and choose a vehicle, and how do I look for that right vehicle. So when you're looking to buy your vehicle, there are a few ways you can approach this. A referral is always great. If you know someone who's actually a personal contact, someone who's got a vested interest in making sure they sell you a vehicle that you can get an honest history from, that's always great. You can go on the internet and you can scour through the internet and look for people who are selling, and you're going to find you're going to come up with 2 options. Someone selling a vehicle privately and maybe a dealer. Now there's nothing wrong with buying from either, provided you understand that they are both reputable. A private person can equally pull the wool over your eyes, as could a dealer. And you get some great dealers who you can buy vehicles from, as you do private people who want to sell you the vehicle. And if you can understand why they're selling their vehicle, you might find that it's a vehicle they don't really want to sell, but they have to sell. They've put a lot of time, energy, and love into this vehicle, and they want it to go to a good home. With a dealership, it's a little bit more difficult, because you're interfacing with someone who wants to sell you a vehicle. So their interest is making sure that you do a transaction with them. It's more transactional. So it's going to be more important for you to do the checks, the background history, get someone to look over the vehicle and test it, so that you can absolutely be sure you've got confidence. And many dealerships will offer you that confidence and build that confidence in, because they want you to come back and buy another vehicle, or they've got a very good reputation. You want to ask the seller to send you a whole lot more photographs that you can look at more clearly. And when I engage with my clients and support them to buy a vehicle, that's the first thing I look at. I look through all the photographs. I want photographs of the chassis. I want it of the diffs, the gearbox. I'm looking for oil leaks. I'm looking in the pictures to see if things have been modified, parts that shouldn't be on the car. Looking at some of the body work. All before I make a decision that I'm actually going to invest my time and my energy into actually looking at this car, which is the next phase. If someone's not prepared who's selling the vehicle to entertain me looking at it, sending me photographs, facilitate the sale, that's another question. They probably don't want to sell the vehicle, or maybe they're hiding something. So if you take the vehicle you're looking at buying and you want to make further checks on the vehicle, but you don't have someone who can actually come to look at the vehicle with you, offer to take the vehicle or ask the person selling it to take the vehicle to their main dealership. That way you've got the people who work and know the cars to do a check. More often than not, they've got a set checklist they'll go through. Connect with the person in the workshop, like the workshop manager. Explain what you're doing and why you're doing it. And you want him to take a bit of extra care to look over the car for you and give you an idea of what work might be needed to be done on this car. And be prepared to pay for that check. Because that way, there's no reason for the seller not to allow you to do that. And if you can't find an OE dealership, there's a network of Bosch service centers. Equally, they've got a great network. They've got a very high standard of workmanship. Use them. Find a specialist person who can actually help you make these decisions easier. You cannot see everything on the car until it's stripped down. So there's always an element of risk when you buy a used car. But you reduce that risk by looking at a lot of the obvious things and doing a number of tests on the car that can actually help you make that decision more confidently. Things like doing a compression test, testing the water system to make sure that it holds the pressure, looking for oil leaks, looking for any signs of accident damage, making sure the doors close, do all the auxiliaries work, looking carefully at the detail at what's been done, then taking the invoices of what's been spent on the car and the story of what the person's telling you. And this picture is going to give you the confidence to go, this is a good truck to buy. It ticks all the boxes. I feel confident in the person I'm buying it from. I've built up this relationship. We've done the tests, and actually the journey, the experience is really good. When that experience is not good, or something's telling you that there's an alarm bell ringing, walk away. Be prepared to walk away. Rather buy with confidence than regret the spend you've made and cost you a lot more down the line. So the importance of the team is really to understand that you're surrounding yourself with people who actually can complement you, support you, have the knowledge, skills that actually can build your vehicle and help you with that. You're going to need a specialist for the diesel system. It's an important element of the vehicle that often gets overlooked. There's also a specialist needed for the drivetrain, your gearbox, your differentials, your transfer box. Equally, if I'm having any work done on the engine, I'm going to have that at a specialist, someone who actually knows how to rebuild an engine properly. Make sure that the quality of the parts that you're putting into your vehicle and your engine and the gearbox and the diffs are really good quality parts. Because I can promise you one thing, if you're getting a cheap job, there's only one way you're going to get a cheap job. Someone doesn't value their time and they're not that good, or they're compromising on the quality of parts. And you don't want either. We're going to take you to meet each one of those specialists that I use so that you can get from their perspective how they approach it, what's important that they take into account when they are building up your vehicle or doing work on your vehicle.
My first stop whenever I'm preparing a vehicle for overland expedition is to take it to Snyman 4x4. It's a family business that specializes in Land Cruisers. They are very well respected in the industry. They have good knowledge, great work ethics, they stand by their work, and most important, Jubei will never compromise on parts that he uses.
Jubei, you stand apart really by taking these Land Cruisers that are from the old 40s right through to now, and you build them, you repair them, you service them. What would be the 5 top things you would look at a vehicle before you actually buy it?
Water system, that's very important. Drivetrain, clutch. Sometimes electronics on these cars can give you problems. And to repair them, that can be very expensive. On the body, if it's a rattle box, stay away.
Rust is probably one of the worst things you want. It's like a cancer in the car. And the last thing you want to do is go and pour a lot of money into a vehicle that's got rust on it. A little bit of surface rust you can sort out, you can clean up. An old car you can bring back to life. And the important part is that you start with a good base vehicle, and the rest can be built back into the car, like brakes and suspension and tires and clutches and that.
Find out what you want to do with the vehicle.
Yeah.
That's the most important. Most people think diesel is light on fuel, but it isn't. The petrol and the diesel is very close to each other. And the maintenance on the diesel is quite higher than the petrol.
I think that's really good advice, because the big challenge you're going to have over time is that, you know, if you don't choose the right vehicle for what you're going to do, so if you're getting into overlanding and you're looking at an entry-level vehicle, start with something and move towards something as you grow over time and build it up.
So I've chosen Snyman 4x4 to do the initial check on the vehicle, identify the weak points and problems, strip down the vehicle, and then finally to reassemble the vehicle with all the new parts. Our next stop is going to be Cape Transmissions. This is also a family-run business, started by the father, now run by Alaric and his brother Donovan. They specialize in transmission overhauls, gearbox diffs, and rebuilds using only quality parts with a very high standard of workmanship. And I've chosen them to actually strip down and rebuild the differentials, the gearbox and the transfer box on this product.
So Alaric, we're looking at buying a used four-wheel drive, and that's something that really needs to be checked over, especially by a specialist like yourselves with a family business and a deep understanding of the transmission and driveline. What would you recommend we do?
Well, you start looking for the obvious things. A oil leak is never a good thing. You know, that could be quite some cost incurred in repairing that in the first place. Gear selection would be the next dead giveaway. If you struggle to find a gear or it grates into especially reverse, it could be an indication of a faulty clutch. The other thing to look at when you drive it would be smooth gear shifting, and especially when you release the clutch pulling away and even after shifting a gear, if you have thudding sounds, would be indication of a lot of lash on the drivetrain.
Okay.
At slightly higher speeds, if you experience vibration, it could be a faulty prop shaft, out of balance or worn. Those are the simple things. Getting deep in it, if you were to look under the vehicle, you can physically check for backlash on the diffs especially, and up and down play everywhere a shaft joins a gearbox or a diff.
So where the diff and prop shaft join, check for play. The same at the transfer box.
Yes.
Obviously universal joints on the prop shaft,
Front
sliding
and
joints
rear.
on the prop shaft. Now when you drive the car, I mean, that's important to get someone with experience to drive it, because they will pick up a lot of little problems and a lot of things like the vibrations, which if you're not sure, you know, it's difficult to pick up if you don't know that.
Yes.
So, you know, as you'd say, important to drive it. Any other tips when driving?
Well, the clutch pickup point is also important. If a clutch takes too low, it has a worn plate. If it takes too high, something can be wrong with the pressure plate. So you want a nice pickup point on your clutch. I'd say 20% of the way up from the floor would be good.
Now the other thing to look at is what would you advise people to do when looking after their gearbox and drivetrain?
Driving it well, of course, helps a lot. Proper driving, you know, releasing your clutch all the way before you start accelerating gradually. You know, snap changing and quick gear changes serve no good purpose other than to wear things out. And of course, maintenance. If you don't have any faults on your gearbox, at least regular oil changes. And on overlanding and off-road, of course, water crossings.
Yeah, that is so.
Yes.
I think we see more damage done through diffs, bearings, possibly gearboxes too, where people have gone through water or stood in water and not actually maintained or checked afterwards.
Yes, so after a weekend of water crossings, have your oil drained and checked or replaced.
And quality of oils, because I know that's really an important thing. People don't understand the value of quality and how often they should change the oils.
Yes, and gearbox and diff oils are quite specific specifications. Most oils on the market are good enough, if I could put it that way. But there are some special oils that will give you longer, better service, and especially in the case of a gearbox, with regards to the feel of your gear shift.
Yes.
Some of the nicer oils have easy shift additives, which really help it along. And I'd say gearboxes and diffs, generally, if you don't do hard trips, every 60,000 kilometers is a good time to change your oils.
And also, I've also said to people, when you buy a vehicle and you don't know the history, it's a good idea to do a baseline and start. Oil's not expensive, but to actually go through and renew all your oils, and then you know that's where I start and I work from there, checking the oils.
If you have a heavy vehicle, You might change it more often.
Yeah.
So with my drivetrain specialist chosen, I now need to look for an engine specialist. And what better place than Goch & Cooper? Goch & Cooper are a long-established business. They have a great reputation. Dion, the founder and owner of Goch & Cooper, has got massive experience building race cars, tuning cars, and his engine experience and the diagnostics and the forensic work that he does is second to none.
Dion, tell us a bit about what's important when you take a four-wheel drive and you want to build back power into it, especially an overland vehicle that's fully laden. What are you going to focus on in that?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem. The guys add all this weight on bull bars, bumpers, fuel tanks, and put so much weight on it, and they complain about fuel consumption and power. That's why we've got a product to put on the vehicle, run it on our dyno, measure the exhaust gas temperatures, air fuel ratios, all sort of stuff. So the tuners work with all those safety parameters to make sure that the vehicle's good.
And I think that's the important part when you're doing any kind of turbo tuning, upgrading, taking fuel pumps, is actually setting those parameters to make them safe, which is really important, and to build back in, keep that reliability.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting on the dyno. The guys do live data testing. They're actually looking at the parameters while they're tuning them. They're watching the air fuel ratios, exhaust gas temperatures. When the vehicle leaves here, it's guaranteed 100% safe.
If you had to go out and buy a four-wheel drive vehicle, it's really important to try and establish you're buying a good vehicle. What 5 or 6 points would you give someone to check over?
The most important thing is taking the car to someone reputable that can do inspection for you before you even think of buying the car. So it's got to go on the lift, do undercarriage inspection, have a look if there's any accident damage. Service records, very important. Just have the car checked over by somebody you can trust. We do it for our clients. We tell them before you buy a car, bring it to us. We go through it bumper to bumper, and we'll actually tell them it's a good car or it's a bad car. Don't buy it or buy it.
And in respect to the engine, that's obviously your knowledge and huge background experience. What would people be listening for on an engine or be aware of if they were test driving a vehicle or looking at it?
Yeah, don't drive it fast. I think a lot of people make the mistakes when they drive it fast. You drive it out of the vibration zone. Drive it slow, turn slowly, feel it, listen to the noises. Drive it over little bumps in the road so you can actually see what it's doing. Make full circle turns so you can make sure if it's rear-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. I mean, if you're spending money on a 4x4, spend a couple of rand to test it properly. You're investing in the product, make sure you buy the right thing.
So equally important to the rebuild of your engine is to look at the fuel injection system, the injectors, and the injection pump. And that needs a specialist. And we've chosen a Bosch affiliated specialist, DupDiesel, and he's going to take each of these segments, look at them in detail, strip them, and rebuild them. DupDiesel have got great insight into the fuel injection systems. They're steeped in experience. They've got the latest technology. They're backed by Bosch, and they absolutely have what it takes to build back in that reliability into the fuel injection system.
So Dirk, a lot of people can't all go out and buy a brand new four-wheel drive, and I certainly, for simplicity and quite often to be able to rebuild an older vehicle, what are you finding with people coming in with older vehicles? You know, four-wheel drives and that especially.
What we find is the lack of the maintenance, that we see. By the time those older vehicles, as you refer to, come in our workshop, we see them with 250 or 300,000 kilometers or more on. It's been through its third or fourth owner. And there's nothing wrong buying an older vehicle. Sure. It's a good proposition, you get meticulous owners that kept those vehicles very well, but then you get the guys that never ever spent money on maintenance and maintained the vehicle properly. So yes, you get the fuel tanks that's faulty, fuel lines that's blocked, fuel injectors that wasn't maintained properly, that caused probably engine damage. Yeah. There's stuff like a common thing is exhaust gas recirculating valve that nobody gives attention to. So you open up those intake manifolds, you see it's all clogged up, blocked up. If you look at the older vehicles, it's older technology with respect to the new technology. But if you go in Africa or far up country, you rather sit with something more simple to work with. Absolutely. Than the latest stuff that, you're looking at the latest common rail injectors, for example, the tolerances is so small, you need like 3 or 4 pieces of sand going through the injector and you've got your whole holiday on hold for like a week. And it's
and a challenge to fix something like that.
Yes,
because,
of course.
The pumps and the sort of the technology with all the equipment is
For
based
sure.
in big cities, and you need to get
Yeah,
help.
for sure. And not to mention diagnostics. If you get a vehicle like that with the latest technology versus the older technology, they can still have a look at it and they make an adjustment here or there and take it off or clean and put it back. But on the latest stuff, if we don't have a laptop computer with the latest software, you can't talk to it. The light comes on, but you don't know what's wrong with it.
Sure.
Me, myself, if I would buy something to go far away, I will stick to the older stuff. It's definitely worthwhile.
Simple and more reliable and
It's-
fixable in the bush, which
for
I think
sure.
is what we
No.
share that often with people.
Yes.
And I think that's a key thing that we're trying to get across. And I think it's good to hear from you because you fix this equipment every day.
So one of the most critical components of rebuilding a vehicle is the parts supplier. Knowing that you can count on the quality of the parts, the backup and support, and the service. Terrain Tamer have recently opened a branch in Cape Town, and that is led by Marinus and his team. And this is where we'll be getting the bulk of our parts.
So Marinus, we're here at your branch, your warehouse in Cape Town, and I know people are going to want to know, how do you get all these parts from Australia here? Because it's a huge amount of parts.
So we bring most of the parts in through containers, but for the smaller parts that we don't stock here, we've got an air freight coming in every week.
How much support do you actually get on buying Terrain Tamer parts here in Africa?
We've got stockists in all the SADC countries, and then we also got some stockists up in East Africa, and we keep on building on this network so that if you tour through Africa, that you do have support in all the countries.
I think that's very important. You know, any parts that you end up putting on your vehicle, you need to know if you're traveling remote, far-flung places, you've got that support. I know you cover a few brands, and specifically Land Cruiser. What other brands are you catering for?
So we focus mostly on your Japanese vehicles, like your Toyota Land Cruiser, your Nissan Patrol, your Toyota Hilux. But the best is to pop onto our website at terraintamer.com. You can go through all the products, all the ranges, everything that's available for your vehicle.
So I hope this first episode has given you a clear indication of how you would start this process. It's not daunting. There is a process you can follow, and you can take the advice and the tips and apply it to making sure you find yourself an amazing vehicle to take on expedition. In our next episode, we take in the vehicle to Snyman 4x4, where we will check the car through from bumper to bumper. We're going to show you how to test all the little different components on the vehicle, look for problems, just to identify if this vehicle is worth fixing up, and an idea of what this might encompass for all the work we have to do to make it a reliable vehicle to take overland. If you're enjoying the content, please like and subscribe to our channel. And if you're looking for more information, please go to the website, theoverlander.co.za.